Hey there guys, what's going on? Galeriot here. Welcome back to the YouTube channel once again for another Danmachi Memoria Freeze video, and today we're looking at the latest Familia Rush. We're going to be going over each stage. We're looking at the weaknesses, what units you could possibly use, and then we will go in-game into the event and try and do a mock run on whatever stages live for my Familia. Of course, if you guys going to enjoy this video, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, and of course, comment down below. Are you guys ready for this Familia Rush? And if so, where do you expect to finish? If you are in a Familia, let me know. I'm curious to see what you guys have to say. And of course, one more thing as well. Usually, I don't tell you guys to go watch certain videos, but today I am asking you guys, if you want to know more about Familias and how they work and everything, go check out yesterday's video where I talk about everything to do with the Familia and what you need to know before you get into it, alright? So be sure to check that video out before we continue with this, okay? Alright, for those of you who've watched the video or know everything already, let's get right into it, shall we? So let's look at stage 1 first and foremost, right? So for stage 1, we have a group of dragons. The whole premise of this Familia Rush is dragons, so you will need dragon killer basically. A lot of units actually do have this ability, so you shouldn't necessarily have to worry too much, but of course they will want you to have specific like typings and stuff like that, so we'll come on to that in just a moment. So you have 5 wyverns with dragon. Of course, dragon killer is effective. Wind magic attacks are effective, so wind plus magic, you need to use that basically. The enemy skills, basically what they do is that they give themselves damage received, attack type all, and single targets is reduced, so they'll take less damage from AoE and single target attacks. Now there are units that will be able to remove this ability, so you can keep an eye out on that, but of course this is going to be just making sure you guys at least can do damage no matter what. Forget about the fact that they have this allies ability. Just try and focus on doing as much damage as possible. So he has P-Res, so you can't really use physical units. He does have M-Res, so you can start using other element magic units as well, potentially. We'll come on to that in just a second. Fire has 40% resistance, which is great. Love to see it. Always love to see it. Earth, wind, or earth, water, thunder, light, and dark have 0, and wind has minus 60. I was going to include wind in that list, but wind has minus 60. So they give a recommendation of using wind recollections eyes, so the latest eyes that we just got, part of the recollections of the wind banner. And of course, braver instructor Finn for that assist wind resistance reduction. So let's come on to the game and let's look at some units that we can use potentially to be able to counter these enemies, right? So let's go to well, I can probably just go to Familia Rush right now itself, and we'll start building a team for each stage basically. So right now we have round 1 actually going on. Funnily enough, we do actually have the round 1 going on in my game as well, but we're not going to be challenging him just yet. We're not, and I'm personally not going to be challenging him. No way in hell am I doing that. So one thing to note when we look at that picture again, right, let's go back over there. You can't really use physical units. Even if they are of a different typing, you really don't want to be using them. And even if you do have a wind unit as well, right, you're basically neglecting minus 20%. You're getting only minus 20% of the resistance down basically, right, which isn't great. So you have to consider that as well. In my personal opinion, the best way to go about it is using magic units, but of other typings if you have to, right? Not fire, of course. Fire, don't use fire units at all. That's basically step 1. Step 2, avoid using physical units even if they are of the wind type. Step 3, use magic units of any type. And then of course, if you have amazing unit selection and stuff like that, go for units that are wind and magic types. So let's have a look see again. Now you guys might have actually seen a unit that's actually pretty good in this situation, and that is this Fina. Of course, Fina is a time limited unit, so we can't really say that a lot of players will have her, right? But she is not a bad option. She's not a bad option. She has the ability to reduce wind resistance as well. She can give herself magic and wind attack damage. She has the 3 additional actions. So she is a little bit of a modern unit as well, because she did get a recent buff right before the 5th anniversary. So she will be able to help the team out massively. So she is an option. If I'm not mistaken, yeah, she has Beast Killer. So she doesn't have Dragon Killer. So that's the only downside to Fina. But she's a really good option. Now I want to go to the album actually, because I probably will be missing some wind units, because I'm personally not too fond of the wind typing and I don't have that many wind units in all honesty. So let's have a look see. Wind, and we'll go to magical attack first and foremost, right? So if we look at the wind magic options we have here, we of course have this unit right here, right, who is a single target attacker, so we don't want to count these units, by the way. Do not count the wind single target users. There's no real point in it. You could go with this Ryu. By the way, this Ryu is going to be a decent option as well, to be honest. She is of course a magic type user. She does have Dragon Killer as well, so another great unit, but again, time limited. She was part of the 3rd anniversary. She came in the last part, so that's something. Well, you have to also remember, well, right now you can't get her, but you will be able to get her in January when we do get the Astrea record rerun. But for now, unfortunately, if you don't have her, you can't use her, but she is a great option for this event. Now, looking at other options, you of course have this new Eyes, right, who is a magic type attacker. Really good option. Will help the team out massively. And of course, being able to remove the opponent's status buffs on her first skill, of course, with the additional action is really good, of course. So definitely, if you have her, you can use her. But if you look at the options, there aren't that many great options. A lot of them are time limited, mind you. If you're looking at the magic users, right, you look at these magic users, time limited. Well, this Belle is time limited, we know that. She is time limited, we know that. So the only real issue is when you're going into this fight for round 1, if you're looking at strictly AoE users, it's a bit tricky. You of course have this new Yamato Mikoto as well. She doesn't have a killer, but if she's your only option, you've got to run her. You have to run her. So that's something to bear in mind. But if we look at other options, right, and let's look at other options. So let's remove wind. Let's keep magical attack on. Actually, let's filter to everything except fire, and let's include Dragon Killer, because that is gonna tell us a lot of what's available. So you have these options, right? It's not that much, let's be real, it's not that much, but you do have some decentish options. Now this Riveria isn't the worst unit on the planet. She is a little bit old, she's a little bit dated, she doesn't have any additional actions or anything, but she can do the job if need be. She will get you a little bit of a score, which is good enough. Now, if you look at some of the other options, you have this Asfi as well, you can use as well. Again, doesn't have any additional actions, but it can get the job done for the most part, reducing the MRes, being able to buff herself up, you know, has Dragon Killer, magic user, it does the job. This Eyes is a AoE user again. Another good option potentially to you know, use. And of course, if she also has the ability to remove any damage reduction attack type all target buffs that the foes have. So again, a really decent option. So you have some options here. You have this Eyes, you have this Rivera, you have this Asfi. They're all non-time limited, so you might have them, but it is a struggle. It is definitely a struggle. I'm not expecting many players to have these units, so bear that in mind. And one thing to note is that you only realistically want 3 DPS options, or when you go into any event like 7 zone and stuff, right? In Record Buster, you can get away with a 4, you know, DPS option basically, right? But if you're going into Familia Rush, a great option, and it's highly recommended in all honesty, is that you take a unit like Haruhime in. A unit like this Haruhime, the Wind Haruhime from the 3rd year anniversary, the original Haruhime, Rei. These are options you have to take in to basically keep your status buffs going, or, you know, being able to ensure that you're gonna get that support buff basically as well. So bear that in mind. Of course, I think in this case, maybe Rei is not a bad option because she's of course a wind type user and she can buff the team up, right? So for round 1, you could probably take Rei here, this Rei right here. One second, where is she? She's right here. She's a +4 for me. But you can take this Rei in. She gives 90% magic and 100% wind attack damage to your allies. Reduces the opponent's STR and match. So if you're struggling with, you know, the ability to you know, sustain damage from them, you've got that. She increases the thick gauge, gives magical and dexterity 30%, 35% HP regen. Really strong unit, very strong unit there. A good option. Now let's look at the next one. Let's go to stage 2 now and see what we are dealing with there. So now we're going up against 3 infant dragons. Dragon Killer is effective again, but now Fire Physical is effective, and this is where I'm probably going to be rocking my team for the most part. The enemies can reduce MRes on you basically, so be wary of that. They'll deal a little bit more damage, and they increase their own earth attack damage, so that's something to bear in mind. They don't really reduce damage that they take from you guys or reduce your damage in any way. It's just they basically deal more damage, so bear that in mind. The enemy resists are minus 40% P-res, 40% M-res, fire minus 60, earth, wind 60 and 40 respectively. Water and thunder is 0 along with dark being 0 as well. And light is 60. Again, this is them trying to neutralize obviously the light physical team. But let's look at fire physical, right? It's very easy to make a good set of teams here, in my personal opinion. Like I've said, fire teams have dominated this game for a very long time. Not so much in the last year, but there are some decent options, right? Of course, they've mentioned the latest Tsubaki along with the new Ryu from the anime gacha as units you can use to go into this fight. But let's look at some options, right? Let's look at some options. Okay, let's have a look at some options and see for ourselves what we can use here. And I think I can give you guys way more options, all right? So let's have a look see. So we're looking for fire physical attackers with Dragon Killer, right? Let's go back to the album and I'll show you guys exactly what to use. I think I have some in mind that I think you guys can use very easily. So let's pull up fire physical first and foremost, and then we'll specify it into Dragon Killer. Because to be honest, the way I approach Familia Rushes, right, is I focus entirely on the enemy resist primarily. Once I can figure that out, I then see if I have any options in terms of the killer, because the killer bonuses is pretty decent, but the resistance are more important. So bear that in mind, okay? So let's look at fire physical. You have a lot of options. I mean, I don't have to say it. I mean, compared to wind magic, you guys saw it was barely 2 rows. This, on the other hand, is nearly 4 and a bit over rows, basically. So you've got a lot of options. I mean, we can obviously talk about the new Tsubaki. We can talk about the Argonaut and Crozo that came out right before the 5th anniversary. You know, if you did the rerun banner, you could do that. You have Lid from the anime gacha from 2 years ago, I think. 2 years ago, yeah. 2 years ago, you have Kaguya and Elise if you've summoned on the 3rd anniversary banner. But then you have some other options as well that are pretty decent in terms of collaboration units. Ashina, Lily over here, I'll just call her Lily. You've got Bet, technically a good option, not the greatest option, of course, because you're facing off against AoE units. So the single target special art is not gonna be it, but it's an option nonetheless. You have, of course, a couple of other options, like for example, the Zard is not a bad option, really strong, AoE unit from the 3rd anniversary as well. So you have some options right here. Now, let's look at Dragon Killer, because this is where I think it might become a little bit more trickier. Yeah, I knew it. So Tsubaki is realistically the only Dragon Killer, so that makes things a little bit tricky, unfortunately, in terms of adventures. And if we were to look at just generally, right, if we were to look at fire, water, thunder, and dark, because those are the only ones that aren't getting any resistances or anything of that sort, right? So fire, water, thunder, and dark. Will we get any other options? No. So in all honesty, your main focus will realistically be just going full out offense in terms of taking some fire physical units and going in. You're not gonna get much of a benefit here, and I assume they'll know that as well. And I mean, if you want to have another look as well, let's see what it is for fire, magic, and dragon killer, because I think there are 1 or 2 more options here. Yeah, there are a little bit more options. You have this Wealth Crozo, who's a single target user, so no real judgment there. You have this Elise from the 3rd anniversary as well that you can use, that has Dragon Killer. And then of course you have this Riveria as well, who's a single target user, so you can't really focus on that. But this Elise is the only other realistic option. So in all honesty, you're not gonna get much out of this one, so we'll have to just wait and see. Also, I'll talk about the assists later on in the video, just so that it's much more easier to do all the assists in one shot, and I'll specify them round by round. Actually, no, it'll be easier for me to determine the assists right now. So if you're looking for assists, I mean, they've already mentioned the Ryu, right? So I'm not going to specify too much about the Ryu. But in terms of other options that you may have, right? You have this Hestia, who can give fire attack and wind damage. She gives magic as well, but that's something you can deal with. You also have this Hestia as well, who gives opponents minus 20% fire res, critical rate, and counter rate. You do have the Ryu, of course, that they mentioned. You have the new Finn as well, who gives minus 25% fire res, right? If I can find Finn, I'm going blind here. Where is Finn? There he is. This Finn also gives minus 25% fire res at MLB. Then you have, like I said, you have the Ryu from the anime gacha, right? Not this one. It is this one. She gives minus 25% P-res along with fire attack damage. And yeah, that's pretty much the way you want to go. You want to go with reducing fire res. You want to go with, increasing strength. You want to reduce physical resistances. Stuff like that. You're looking for those type of units basically, right? So there you have it. Now let's look at the next slide and see what we're dealing with there, right? We are going up against the Wyvern, a single target Wyvern with Dragon Killer being effective, and of course wind magic attacks being effective. He gives himself P-res and M-res and removes buffs on you. Okay, so you'll have to keep an eye out on when the buffs go away. Usually they'll be around turn 4 or 5 basically is when they'll remove it, so be wary about that. The resistance is 50% P-res, minus 60% M-res, and minus 60% wind res. Everything else is fine, so that's at least good. If you have a magic unit single target and you can go from there, like for example the Welf Crozo and Riveria that I mentioned, both had Dragon Killer, both were single target, you could use them right here because they're both magic users, right? So wind M attacks are effective magic attackers with Dragon Killer like Motherly F Riveria, and Wind Recollection's eyes excel in this battle. The enemy will remove buffs from your allies, so use Motherly Elf Riveria to reduce the enemy's wind resistance and increase single target attack damage received. So yeah, like I said, I think the main units you'll want to use are units like, well, you'll want to use wind units, right? Again, the way you'll do it is like how you would do the light physical team. Even if Eyes is not a single target user, you will use her no matter what. Along with that, you will use the new Riveria, you will use the 3rd anniversary Ryu as well. Basically units with Dragon Killer. But like I said, we can have a look see and actually see all the Dragon Killers that are magic based, right? And you have a decent chunk of them. You do have a decent chunk of them, and if you include fire as well, you do have a little bit more as well. You don't have the options that I mentioned earlier on. So if you're struggling for that 3rd unit, say you have the Ryu and Riveria, try and see if you have any of these other options. If you have this Hestia, for example, who I have +5 coincidentally, you could use this Riveria as well, or you could use this Welf. There's just options. There's options for you to use here, and you can go from there. In terms of wind assists, I mean, I don't have to specify too much. They've already mentioned stuff like Fina and whatnot. But like I said, this Hestia actually is, again, one of the best ones because she gives fire attack and wind damage, right? So really beneficial for you right there. You have the Fin, and just generally you will want to go for magic debuffers as well. So you can go for this Hermes right here. Where is Hermes? Where are all the Hermeses? There he is. So you want to use this Hermes, for example, who will reduce minus 25% M-res and counter rate and god rate plus 20% to you. And counter rates are useful. Again, counter rates are so huge in 7th zone because you get extra damage from it. So bear that in mind. So you have all these options as well, and that's how you want to go about it. So let's have a look, see what we can do in a mock battle against this first round. Of course, I'm not going to be setting a score, to be quite honest, because I will probably wait until we can get a better team going. But let me see if I can adjust the team in any shape or form. So like we said, we want to get Dragon Killer and win. Do I have any options in that regards? No, not really. So we're gonna have to probably run a team like this effectively, and we're gonna have to just see how it goes basically. So the main aim is probably to use this setup, I guess. Yeah, this setup is probably the best. We're gonna use our skill flow, and let's see what happens. I mean, there's no real harm in testing it out and seeing what happens. We'll give it a whirl, and hopefully we win. Hopefully we get a good score. We can compare it to some other players who've just set their scores as well, so that'll be a good tester as well. So let's see how it's like. So if you saw what my skill order was, it was primarily a bunch of like setting up buffs, getting ready to attack, and going for it basically. And it's a lot of AoE attacks basically. You do not set up anything in terms of course your single targets. There's no reason, and especially when you're facing off against an AoE unit. The one issue is, right, even if you're using Fina, for example, right, the issue with Fina is that her counters actually aren't that great because you're healing in it. It's a bunch of heals, so it's realistically not going to be of any use in that situation, like you saw there. So unfortunately, you're not getting damage from Fina's ability, so that's one of the biggest issues when it comes to a unit like Fina, for example, which is a shame, but it is what it is. We can't really do much about that, unfortunately, right? So you got, yeah, pretty much from here on out, it's a matter of just going in and setting up and going for the for as much damage as possible. Like I said, this is just a case of we can do as much. If we can do as much damage as possible, that'll be very, very good. We're gonna get triple SAs as well now. Once upon a time ago, I will say this, at a point there used to be a time where you couldn't necessarily do triple SAs without running the risk of, you know, losing damage, unfortunately. But now, with how the game is and with what units you have and everything, it's so easy, and honestly it's very valuable at this point. You know, you're not losing out on any damage, you've got some amazing assists to go alongside it. It's fantastic. It is genuinely fantastic. So that's something to bear in mind when it comes to this. So let's see, we're almost at the end of the run and we're about to hit our third essay. There we go. And let us see how much damage we get in total, because that's what I'm curious about, because I'm going to be seeing later on how it goes with round 2 as well, and then deciding, or stage 2 I should say, and then deciding which stage to be on. But I think stage 2 is going to be far superior for me because I have the fire units, I have the assists, everything is ready. So this is unfortunately just a little bit more trickier because of a lack of wind units, unfortunately. But we got some good damage there. Overall, I'm very happy with that. But let's see how it compares to other players. So obviously, once we're done with all the counters, again, this is the reason why I say it's very important to be able to take damage, because if you get guarded and you don't take 0 damage, you can't counter. So we got 36.1 million, if I'm not mistaken, because that is 178,000, 6 million, 36 million. Okay, so we got 36 million. How's that in comparison to our friends in the game? So 21.9, 22, 21, 27, 21.7, not bad. I mean, of course, I don't know how the others will do, so I'm gonna wait and see what they do. But yeah, that's pretty much it. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. Hopefully you leave a like if you enjoyed it. Subscribe to the channel, and of course comment down below if this helped you in any shape or form, and any video ideas you guys may have, it would be greatly appreciated. Until then, hopefully you guys have a lovely rest of your day. I'll see you guys next time. Take it easy, everybody. Bye bye.